CLE board members meet to discuss a controversial policy. Tbaytel names its new president and CEO. And the finger-pointing continues following the shutdown of the U.S. government.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Bad news tonight for those who rely of city transit services.
Members of the city's amalgamated transit union say they're fed up and are willing to take strike action to get a fair contract. Local 966 of the ATU issued a news release today saying their contract situation has been placed on the back burner by city officials for so long, they're now being forced to step up the fight for their rights. Members voted 99% in favor of strike action in a ballot held on Sunday. ATU President Sheila Kavisto says local workers are the second lowest paid transit employees in the entire province and that the city has been unreasonable in dealing with their demands. Even though the two sides are set to meet with a conciliator tomorrow, Kavisto says there is little optimism a deal will be reached. But officials at City Hall say they remain confident that an agreement can be found. The last time city transit employees went on strike was back in 1987. That work stoppage lasted 18 days.
The CLE board is meeting at this hour. It's the first since the dismissal of Linda Gamby after she accused some members of drinking and driving after meetings and threatened legal action against the board. The controversy has cast a black cloud over the CLE board that's lingered for nearly a month now, and it doesn't appear members will be able to put the issue behind them just yet. They're expected to spend much of this evening's meeting revisiting a variety of topics, namely the accusations, board policies, and the city's review of the CLE board lease agreement. Board member and city councillor Ken Boschkoff expects the board policy committee will eventually make a recommendation on whether or not to get rid of the on-site bar, likely one that dovetails with the city's review of the matter. Boschkoff had this to say when asked if he thinks members should be able to enjoy a drink after meetings.
To do that, I can understand that. The need for maybe keys to that, I can't see why that would be. So I'm sure some of those things will get addressed.
Boschkoff adds in his mind the issue has been blown way out of proportion and admits the accusations have most definitely hurt the CLE.
Thunder Bay City Manager says council has to look at taking on additional debt to tackle a lengthy list of major capital projects. That list comes with a total price tag of $148 million over a 5-year period. It includes road and bridge work, brand new city facilities, and legacy projects like an event center. But as Dennis Ward reports, one decision maker isn't willing to consider borrowing money.
The list of major projects with a cost of $1 million or more comes with a price tag of $18 million for 2014 alone. It includes the second phase of Gulf Links Road and Junot Avenue, work at the conservatory, and money for youth centers. This term of council has been significantly increasing the money it spends on roads and infrastructure, but City Manager Tim Camisso says it would be unrealistic to take on these projects using just the tax base, and that means taking out a loan.
People are hesitant about increased debt, but the city is well managed from the standpoint of its debt. Our debt ratio is very low, even in comparison to other municipalities. So we're not talking about, just going sort of crazy with it. What we're talking about is really a managed program to deal with some of these big projects.
Earlier this week, the mayor said a list like this gives municipal politicians headaches, but he was willing to take on additional debt given the current financial situation of the city. Councillor Rebecca Johnson, on the other hand, says no way.
I am concerned that we would even consider thinking of more debt. Every time you have debt, then you have to pay an interest on that. All that money is then going away from what we want to do in our community. It's the same as in your home. If you want something new, then you have to start figuring out how you can pay for it. Otherwise, you get yourself into such deep debt, you can't get out of it.
Johnson was successful in getting her colleagues to approve a public meeting on the infrastructure priorities. She says taxpayers should get a chance to decide what the priorities are and how they are financed. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
Some members of City Council aren't completely comfortable with the regional hospital's smoking ban. Council was asked last night to amend the city's bylaw to include restricting the use of tobacco at the hospital. While there was a lot of support for the measure, that includes deputizing security personnel at the hospital to enforce the bylaw, some councillors did struggle with the enforcement. There were also concerns for older smokers who would have to leave the hospital property.
I'm speaking for someone who has done it for 40, 50 years. And I am a registered nurse, and I've seen those people. I've worked in an old folks' home for the aged, and I've seen the people when you've tried to tell them they can't smoke, when they've smoked for 40 years. You tried doing it. You try telling them they got to walk to the road, or they can't do it. They can't have it.
Do I want to engage the municipality in fining people that have an addiction? These people that go to hospitals are not there by choice. They cannot leave. They paid for the facility.
On this issue.
But the majority of council did support the measure and felt if there was any place in the city where smoking should be banned, it should be the regional.
I think it's an affront to people, especially with cancer, with emphysema and immune deficiencies, to have to endure that. And I think it's just a slap in the face to patients at the hospital. I think this, of all places, is a place that there should be a ban on smoking.
Municipalities.
Council approved the bylaw amendment by a vote of 10-3. The regional hospital is still deciding how hefty of a fine will be handed out.
Greenstone OPP are investigating following a shooting incident last night in the small community of Karamat, east of Long Lac. It happened just before 8:30 when a man wearing a ski mask and dark clothing and carrying a long gun approached a home. He encountered a resident outside, and after a brief exchange, a shot was fired, striking the victim in the leg. The assailant then ran off towards a nearby bush road. The victim was able to call police and is being treated in hospital.
Tbaytel has announced the appointment of a new president and CEO. After a lengthy international search, the board has selected Dan Tbaytel, who has been serving as interim CEO for the past 9 months. Tbaytel took on the role after former CEO Don Campbell announced his retirement. He has also been the chief financial officer of Tbaytel since 2007. Board Chair Michael Power says the company continues to experience phenomenal growth and adds this has been an exceptional year. Tbaytel believes there is still a lot of room for more growth and expansion of services.
We have made considerable efforts over the last year to make sure that we can improve some of the areas of our coverage that required some additional focus. I firmly believe we've done that, and that'll continue. We've got plans to be able to ensure that our wireless product is the most robust available.
Tbaytel says the company will continue to invest in wireless and broadband, spending what other industry leaders are. Tbaytel has 430 employees. The company provides a yearly dividend to the city in the neighborhood of $17 to $20 million.
Students at St. Pat's High School are learning what not to do on the road after observing the poor driving habits of some distracted Thunder Bay motorists. As part of a class project and in partnership with Allstate Insurance, the teens stood at the intersection of Arthur and Selkirk Streets this morning, making notes on any distracted drivers who passed by. They weren't only on the lookout for those texting or talking on a cell phone, but also for those who were performing seemingly innocent tasks behind the wheel that many of us do every day. Ryan Benazzo explains.
Grade 12 student and new driver Evan Haywood expected to catch some people texting and talking on their cell phones, but after just a short time observing passing motorists just down the street from St. Pat's High School, he can't believe what some drivers are doing, or in some cases not doing, when they think no one is looking.
The weirdest one is we've seen people no hands on the wheel. Like their hands are not on the wheel. They're moving, doing something else, and there's no hands on the wheel, and they're just looking around.
And while that may be an extreme example, the students saw many drivers performing what many feel to be innocent tasks, but distracting nonetheless behind the wheel. Things like eating, smoking, playing with the radio, brushing their hair, and the like. Jonathan Camuzzi admits he's not completely innocent himself.
Even listening to music, changing the radio.
But says this exercise has opened his eyes.
You see these people in the way they're driving, and it really just hits home, especially as a young driver.
I drive on the same road as them because I'm like a new driver, and it just scares me to think like I've done some of that and they're doing some of that. It's a wonder that there's not more accidents each year.
The information is being collected for the students' grade 12 law course. Their observations, which will be discussed in class, can be used as a teaching tool, says Carlo Capello.
They'll be able to take from that and say, I hope I don't look the same
if anybody's monitoring my own driving.
Even if you look down for a second, what if a kid jumps out onto the road? You might be distracted just long enough to really hurt that person.
And Hayward, for one, has taken the lesson to heart.
If they're more concentrated on the road, there's going to be less accidents, more people feel safer, even pedestrians walking, just because it's the smallest things that can be the most dangerous.
Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
It's an opportunity for the underdogs who are looking to expand and take their businesses to a whole new level. The Northwestern Ontario Innovation Centre, in partnership with local investors and developers, is calling on teams of would-be entrepreneurs from across the region. Their newest program, titled Co-Starter, is a 3-month intensive effort that aims to help those with innovative business ideas to launch their product and help their idea grow. Each team accepted will receive a cash investment of $15,000, but the money won't be handed out to just anyone.
The idea. So we're looking for people who have thought about who they're going to sell it to, whether they're going to grow this into a global business. That's what we're looking for, what our investors are looking for. People who have some experience in the field that they're choosing to go into, and people who have an idea of how they're going to market and how they're going to put their products either on the shelves or online, and like I said, build a real global business.
Those looking to apply can visit the Innovation Centre located on Nipigon Road or online at costarter.ca.
And on a similar note, a new project is being launched to help people in remote communities seize opportunities from proposed resource development. The Anishinaabe Development Fund recently received $4.4 million to help encourage entrepreneurship. The NADF pulled together a number of individuals and organizations today who work closely with First Nations. Project manager Colleen Martin hopes they will embrace a pay-it-forward philosophy. Martin says the goal is to attract partners who can add their expertise and knowledge.
I hope the First Nations will recognize that there's support for what they're trying to do in the communities, because sometimes you only hear the negativity, and there are a lot of people in the community at large that are supportive and that want to help, but they don't know what to do. So here's an opportunity for them to come and find out what can they do to help.
Martin says receiving the $4.4 million was unimaginable and more than they've ever had before. That money will be used to implement programs over a 3-year period.
Northwestern Ontario's 3 members of Parliament aren't among the biggest spenders in the House of Commons, but they're also far from being the lowest. New data was released today on the spending of Canada's 308 MPs. The report is for the fiscal year ending March 31st and covers everything from office and travel costs to entertainment expenses. It shows the biggest spender in the Northwest was Canora's Greg Rickford at $480,000. Thunder Bay Atikokan MP John Rafferty rang up costs of $459,000. And Thunder Bay Superior North's Bruce Heyer was at $428,000. This compares to the average expense bill of $399,000. Overall, it cost Canadians $123.6 million to fund our federal representatives, up $2.3 million from the previous year.
Well, it appears someone budgeting the cost of the 2015 Pan Am Games in Toronto has dropped the ball. Ontario's sports minister told a legislative committee today the $1.4 billion budget doesn't include any money to build the Athletes' Village, something he estimates to cost at about $709 million. Michael Chan also revealed there are actually 2 budgets here for the Games, one for the organizing committee and another for the Pan Am Secretariat, but the cost of the Athletes' Village isn't included in either one of them.
Some major changes have been made to the palliative care unit at St. Joseph's Care Group. 10 beds have been updated in a project that stemmed from a vision of a woman whose husband had spent time there. Now, 7 years later, the overhaul is more than anyone involved could have expected. Cheryl Holmes has the story.
Karen Sitko lost her husband Rick nearly 7 years ago. He spent his last days in the palliative care hospice unit at St. Joseph's Hospital.
My husband had spent some time here in hospice, and at that time I could see a need for a few renovations and improvements with regard to the rooms.
After his death, Sitko wanted to paint and refurnish a room to bring more comfort to patients and their families during such a difficult time. Her suggestions grew into a 10-room renovation project that started off with a fundraising goal of $750,000.
It's been an emotional day, and I'm happy for Karen and the rest of the committee and the work they did and the amount of money we raised. We surpassed our goal by over $400,000, which allowed us to not just do the 10 rooms, and it allowed us to complete an entirely new floor for the people and the staff and the families who visit here.
The retrofit of the rooms includes a daybed for visitors, a refrigerator in the room, and a flat-screen TV. The ceilings, flooring, and ventilation were also completely overhauled, along with new lighting, night tables, and a closet and window coverings. Hospital officials say the renovations create an environment that matches the care provided in the hospice.
Comfort is critical at this point for families and for the clients, and so we want to be able to provide as much home-like environment, as much comfort, along with the exceptional care that's provided here.
Now the hospital plans to eventually complete similar renovations to the 22 other beds on the floor. No timelines have been set for completion of that phase of the project, but for Sitco, she says the changes are beyond anything she could have ever imagined.
It's a vision I had for some time now, and to see it here today is something else.
Cheryl Holmes, TBT News.
Students at Hammersholt High School are working on a special project to help build a better school community. The grade 11 and 12 classes in the school's construction program were pouring cement for an outdoor patio today that staff and students can enjoy in good weather. The students are working to create a 20 by 20 foot front yard patio and sidewalk extension. The project is part of their curriculum. They helped to design the plans, measured the space, did all the groundwork, including digging up the soil, and today those students laid rebar and poured the cement for the project. Hammersholt principal Jenny Lamb came up with the idea. She says having the teens so involved in the project is what makes all the difference.
When other people build the project, the kids see the final project, but they don't see all the work involved with getting it done. So this is perfect. It's a big part of their curriculum, and they learn lots of stuff, and they not only reading the material in the book or learning it in the class, they're seeing it done and they're doing it themselves. And I think hands-on learning in this particular kind of area is more meaningful for kids than just reading it out of a textbook.
I never thought that I would be able to do something like this, so to get the opportunity is awesome.
Well, I actually did something. I could come back in 20 years and say to my kids that I made this and there's your daddy's handprint.
It's really cool. Like we're building the whole thing. I'm actually learning stuff instead of just being in a class. I find the whole experience a lot of fun. Now, after I graduate high school, I want to go into the trades, and now I've already done and learned some.
Now, the project was paid for by fundraising dollars from the school and through donated materials from Lafarge Canada and Harris Rebar. Students will also make a planter centerpiece and metal benches to put on the patio. That phase of the project should be completed before the spring semester.
It's a day celebrated across the country and a chance to appreciate the seniors in our lives. Today, several hundred people gathered to commemorate living in an age-friendly community. As Courtney Rutherford reports, those in attendance kicked back and enjoyed every minute.
Rita Busniak wasn't afraid to show how much fun she was having this afternoon. Busniak, who says she's hipper than a hip replacement, has lived at McKellar Place for the past few months and is happy to be celebrating National Seniors Day.
I've checked everything out, and we've all kinds of stores and whatever came and put advertisements for us, and I says it's a good place to be.
Busniak, along with other McKellar residents and seniors who live in the community, had a chance to examine the wares of 25 vendors, enjoy a few snacks, and listen to some music. Richard Lebois was proud to show that being 90 years old, in fact, is the new 40. And when asked how much fun he was having...
How much? Oh, quite a bit.
Suzanne Ty is the event coordinator at McKellar Place. She says the party is held each year to remind the public that seniors are the people who pave the way of the future for many of us.
Because I think it's important to get everyone together to promote healthy and happy aging. It's about time that we celebrated aging, that we took this 100-year-old industry of people going into long-term care. Let's flip it on its head and celebrate aging and let people get out and become younger as they get older.
Courtney Rutherford,